Haven't had any trade talks yet. Maybe it picks up around the combine. Do you think it's time for the Eagles to move on from A.J. Brown, bro?
Well, I certainly would be listening to calls and making calls too. I would not give him away. He's too good of a player for that. But I would definitely be like, if we can get something, whether it's draft picks, whether it's a player that is comparable, then I'm doing it. And I'm starting to feel like the Eagles might be in for a rough season.
You think?
Right. Yeah, it's just too many, like, and here's the thing. You can look at it two different ways, but we know they're going to have a new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, new pass game coordinator, new run game coordinator, right? That you could look at that, and this is fair to say, oh, yeah, and it's going to be much better. It's going to be a whole different show. Or I'm looking at it like it might be a lot of turmoil. If it doesn't go well, AJ, and if it's turmoil, AJ is going to speak his mind, and I think it could really get bad. So I would look at moving on from him.
Some of the confetti fell on Greg from yesterday. It's the gift that keeps on giving. There's still some balloons up there, too. They're going to fall one day. Yeah, it's really sorry. Go ahead.
But, yeah, but that I would definitely be looking to get rid of him. Not give him away, but definitely seeing what I can get for him.
And just to add to that for you, and seems like Lane Johnson might retire. And he's the one guy this team, year over year, has really struggled winning without. But go ahead.
So, no. No, I don't think it's time to move on from A.J. Brown. Again, I'm with you in terms of listening to what's out there. I wouldn't be aggressively making the calls, but if teams are calling me about and acquiring about A.J. Brown, then okay, I'm definitely listening to see what we can get. And I say this because there is so much turnover. When you have a new play caller and there's so much that didn't go right in the previous year, and just because he's been the vocal one out of everyone, we look at him as sometimes the problem. And it's not necessarily that he's been the problem. He's been a large part of the solution and reason why they have success or somewhat success in the passing game. And I just think it's challenging to just get rid of somebody like that unless you're going to get something that you feel really strongly about that can make your team better and improve you in specific areas. I don't know if that happens. And so for that, I don't believe all the way in the quarterback in terms of not having the added personnel around him to elevate everybody to be a contender. I know you do, Wilds.
Well, but we all know where it should happen.
What should happen?
That A.J. Brown left Tennessee, an organization that was going through some turmoil, landed with the Eagles, had some great years, won a Super Bowl, said, you know what, that was great, but I need more. Then had a down year and was telling people on a live stream, hey, if you've got me in fantasy football, put me on the waiver wire. I'm not getting the ball.
Hey, listen, New England is going to be, first of all, trading him, he's $23 million on your cap to play for you. He's $43 million if you trade him. For AJ, not trade for him, KW, Philly. I'm saying for Philly.
Yeah.
Which means if I'm Howie Roseman, that the table stakes is at least a first-round pick. So I think, but again, you guys have a late first-round pick. So that's not a top 10 pick. No one's trading that for A.J. Brown. But a good team trading a first-round pick is what I think would get Philly interested. New England is going to come up. I would imagine Buffalo will come up.
Sure.
And I would imagine
Denver.
That's interesting.
I was thinking Houston. I don't think he and Nico are too duplicative.
Nope.
Right. I think they could play alongside each other. One of the things that's kind of lost history on the C.J. Stroud meltdown game was also Nico Collins was out that game, so he, and he really was without because of the terrible injury to Tank Dell. Maybe he comes back, but
he's supposed to be ready to go.
He had missed, missed the full season. So I think those teams. I also wonder if they would trade within the conference. If the Niners might be like, well, we used to have a bunch of receivers, now we have none.
At this juncture, we have officially transitioned from analysis into outright fabrication. The current speculative vortex proposes the Philadelphia Eagles are preparing to dispatch A.J. Brown to the San Francisco 49ers. I recall approximately 1 month ago when Colin, or perhaps J-Mac, or someone within that ecosystem, floated the notion of Brown being rerouted to the Kansas City Chiefs. The pattern is unmistakable. There is an almost compulsive desire to manifest these transactions through sheer rhetorical will. It is genuinely amusing. I confess I briefly entertained the Houston Texans as a hypothetical landing spot myself. The concept lingered for a moment before I dismissed it as the speculative excess it was. Here is the operational reality. Howie Roseman will authorize an A.J. Brown trade under one condition: if he is convinced that such a move optimizes his capacity to regenerate and reinforce the roster architecture. This calculus becomes particularly salient if Lane Johnson elects retirement and the offensive line requires infrastructural reinvestment. Listening to the commentary ecosystem react to these possibilities with undisguised glee. Oh, the Eagles are imperiled. Oh, do you detect organizational turmoil? Is genuinely comedic. The schadenfreude directed toward a franchise that has sustained competitive excellence across a quarter century is not merely excessive. It is, candidly, embarrassing. I will be forthright. It is embarrassing. To propose that an organization like Philadelphia, which has demonstrated iterative self-reinvention across multiple decades, will suddenly prove incapable of navigating roster transition reflects either historical amnesia or willful ignorance. This is the same franchise that executed a complete organizational metamorphosis. Different roster composition, entirely reconfigured coaching infrastructure, new quarterback installation, and emerged with 2 Super Bowl conquests. 2 entirely distinct championship constructions. 2 victories against legendary quarterbacks, as Nick himself acknowledged within this very broadcast when referencing Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And the current discourse suggests this organization cannot navigate a coordinative transition or a personnel adjustment. The scrutiny becomes microscopically selective. Suddenly, the identity of the run game coordinator is a matter of existential urgency. When was the last occasion that any other franchise received comparable granular examination of positional coaching assignments? The selective application of skepticism is glaring. At minimum, we were spared an extended Jalen Hurts polemic this segment. That alone constitutes progress. Greg's analytical framing resonates with me. When an organization undergoes simultaneous turnover across multiple vectors, coordinative personnel, potential veteran retirements, philosophical adaptation, the presence of established high-performance veterans like A.J. Brown provides essential stabilization architecture. Such players function as structural anchors, facilitating coordinative transitions by maintaining a baseline of schematic competence and competitive intensity. Removing that anchor while concurrently navigating other transitional variables amplifies execution risk for an incoming offensive coordinator. Conversely, integrating a new receiver into an already fluid environment introduces compounding complexity. However, we must confront an uncomfortable empirical observation. A.J. Brown's individual performance metrics have exhibited regression. This cannot be exclusively attributed to schematic deficiencies or quarterback dynamics. He is not consistently winning his matchups. He is not consistently separating at the line of scrimmage. He is not consistently making contested catches that previously defined his competitive identity. At a certain threshold of evidence, responsibility converges on the player himself. That is not indictment, it is observation. This is where Howie Roseman's evaluative methodology becomes salient. We observed Bill Belichick's organizational philosophy for years, the ruthless efficiency of departing from veteran investments marginally too early rather than marginally too late. There is quantifiable strategic value in that temporal calibration. The principle extends beyond New England. If Roseman's internal assessment concludes that Brown's market valuation currently exceeds his projected production trajectory, the economically rational decision is monetization at peak perceived value. Selling high is not admission of error. It is portfolio management. The complicating factor remains the offensive line uncertainty. This is where evaluative clarity becomes genuinely compromised. Coordinative dissatisfaction and protection scheme instability create systemic noise that obscures individual performance assessment. You cannot achieve pristine isolation of variables when the surrounding infrastructure is compromised. The ideal scenario would involve observation under stabilized conditions, new coaching installation, reconceptualized offensive operation, clarified protection assignments. Unfortunately, that luxury may not be available if the retirement decisions materialize unfavorably. Lane Johnson's potential departure would represent a generational transition. The simultaneous possibility of Jason Kelsey's successor questions, Landon Dickerson's positional considerations, Cam Jurgens' developmental trajectory, these converge into legitimate uncertainty. If the organizational diagnosis concludes that comprehensive offensive line reconstruction is imminent, the financial and draft capital implications are substantial. This is where the A.J. Brown calculus transforms. If divesting Brown's contract liberates resources to accelerate offensive line revitalization, the strategic logic becomes self-reinforcing. The Eagles currently possess multiple first-round selections. Allocating one toward premium offensive line talent while redirecting Brown's compensation toward additional line investments is coherent team-building methodology. The subsequent void at wide receiver is addressable through multiple mechanisms: Day 2 draft capital deployed at a deep position, free agency supplementation, internal development of existing personnel. Options are not scarce. The discourse surrounding dead cap allocation remains persistently unsophisticated. The Eagles, during their Super Bowl campaigns, consistently ranked among the league leaders in dead cap obligations. Colin previously dedicated segment time to this exact phenomenon, contrasting Denver and Philadelphia as postseason participants simultaneously carrying unprecedented dead cap burdens. The casual consumer hears $40 million in dead money and reflexively assumes competitive insolvency. This reflects fundamental miscomprehension of organizational capacity differentials. When the Russell Wilson dead cap obligation was widely interpreted as competitively catastrophic, Denver responded by qualifying for the postseason and subsequently advancing to the AFC Championship game. Organizational competence differentials manifest in divergent outcomes from identical financial constraints. When institutional governance is sophisticated, when the general manager demonstrates consistent evaluative acuity, when the coaching infrastructure is secure, when the quarterback position is resolved, financial abstractions become subordinate to execution capacity. The Cleveland Browns experience existential paralysis from quarterback contract dysfunction because their organizational foundation lacks structural integrity. The same constraints produce qualitatively different outcomes when applied to organizations with established operational excellence. The Philadelphia Eagles possess that institutional fortitude. This is not speculative, it is historically substantiated. Therefore, the A.J. Brown determination will ultimately reduce to Roseman's assessment of two variables: the projected trajectory of the offensive line and Brown's anticipated performance arc. If the internal projection foresees offensive line stabilization through organic development and selective investment, Brown's retention remains probable. If the diagnosis indicates comprehensive unit reconstruction requiring premium resource allocation, the economic imperative to monetize Brown's remaining value intensifies. I emphasize, I am not Howie Roseman. I lack access to the medical evaluations, the retirement indications, the internal performance analytics, the coaching staff preferences. I am extrapolating from observable patterns and organizational behavioral history. However, the Philadelphia Eagles consistently generate fascinating organizational dilemmas because their operational standards remain elevated. The conversation surrounding this franchise is perpetually substantive precisely because the organization itself is perpetually relevant. These reflections represent my personal assessment. I am genuinely eager to receive your alternative formulations. What is your evaluative judgment regarding the Philadelphia Eagles' forthcoming personnel strategy? Should the organization proactively solicit trade interest in A.J. Brown? Does the potential offensive line transition necessitate aggressive resource reallocation? Or should the franchise maintain continuity and trust internal developmental infrastructure? I invite you to articulate your positions within the comment infrastructure. I commit to comprehensive examination of each submission. Whether your orientation aligns with or diverges from my own, I welcome substantive engagement. Let us deliberate. Let us constructively dispute. Ultimately, let us derive satisfaction from this collective exercise. I also formally request your consideration of channel subscription. We are cooperatively cultivating an exceptional community in this space, and your participatory inclusion would be authentically valued. My aspirational objective is the construction of a collective environment characterized by genuine mutual connection. A community we authentically experience enthusiasm about joining. I am persuaded we are making significant progress toward this objective. Please also consider bestowing affirmative acknowledgement upon this video content, as it materially enhances content visibility and algorithmic discoverability. I express my profound gratitude. I will convene with you in the subsequent installment.